You know what? Playtime is over for the UCLA men's basketball team.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. You win it, you can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is we're wrapping up, happy Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Hope you enjoy the holidays. Beginning of the super kickoff to the holiday season, which just means we're into big college football weekend games, bowl season opportunities for some. And then for UCLA, this is when the men's basketball team gets to truly feel what it's like to play some meaningful games now that Big Ten play is starting. UCLA still has a couple of days off coming off the Thanksgiving holiday, which is probably good. Chance for some, I believe, to maybe get a chance to see some family. If not, then just kind of get kicking into gear that the next season is preparing, right? UCLA still has non-conference games after their Big Ten debut of sorts, where they play Washington and then Oregon. And UCLA won't play a real non-merged Pac-12 team into the Big Ten until they play Nebraska and Michigan in early January. But they'll technically have games that count for the Big Ten conference standings immediately, starting against Washington, which is a big name. Washington comes in. All right, what do the Huskies look like, right? They got Danny Sprinkles, head coach. He's come in, led two straight teams in two different places to tournaments, Montana State. He did the same in the state of Utah. And now he's taken over a Washington Husky team that's 5-1, but it feels like how the Huskies have been in recent years. They barely beat Davis in the home opener. They beat Nevada. They lost to Nevada by 10 on the road in Nevada, though, against the Wolfpack, even though Nevada's pretty good. Nevada's like 6-1, 7-1 right now. Just went to Charleston and hooped really well in South Carolina. Did the Wolfpack, almost beating Vandy, beat VCU, beat Oklahoma State. They're pretty solid 6-1. So that's not a terrible loss for Washington. What gets me, though, is they were down 11 in the first half to Seattle Pacific, had to come back and win that game by 15. They were scrapping and clawing against UMass Lowell, and won by 5. They beat Alcorn State by 17, but only 2 at the half at home. And then they come from behind to beat Colorado State in Palm Springs. And by the time UCLA plays them, Washington will have played Santa Clara in Palm Springs, a WCC team, and then a Mount West team. Now, both UCLA and Washington have two interesting Mountain West losses. It's just UCLA's look so much more dominant in those other games. While you could argue Nevada might be better than New Mexico, UCLA lost on a neutral floor and just played terribly, while Washington lost at Nevada with 8,000 screaming fans at the Lawler Event Center. This is a game I think UCLA should still continue, just a bigger name in the resume, get that Big Ten game out of the way of sorts. I'm not sure it'll bring much of a crowd on a Tuesday night in early December, but UCLA should coast to an easy 15 to 20 point win. If they're a legitimate contender in the Big Ten, if they want to do something, then they will still beat Washington as easily as they have been handling these other mid-majors. The question, though, is what's going to come up with Oregon, which is the true first big test for UCLA since the New Mexico game. The Bruins will have to go to Matthew Knight Arena. This is an Oregon team that currently at this recording stands 7-0. By the time the Bruins play Oregon, they will play a top 10 Alabama team on a neutral site in Las Vegas. They will have played USC on the road, and then they'll host UCLA on a Sunday afternoon. That's a huge game, because this is the same Oregon team that couldn't beat Portland, that was struggling to beat Portland on the road. They had to come back to beat a Pilots team that had looked woeful prior to that game at Oregon. and then had to come back to beat Oregon State, come back to beat a ranked Texas A&M team, beat San Diego State by 10 on a neutral floor in this Players Era Festival, and now they have a chance in this championship game of this Feast Week tournament that'll be nationally televised to go beat an Alabama team that just, I believe, squeaked by Houston the other night. Oregon could be looking in the top 25. So that has a chance for UCLA to take down an Oregon team who I have wondered, are they terrible or are they really good? Well, the results speak for themselves, and that's a team UCLA has to bank on beating if they want to win a Big Ten. Now, doing it in Eugene, that's not been an easy task for a Mick Cronin-led team, because going to beat Dana Altman and his team, that's always been tough for UCLA. Heck, their season ended last year in the Pac-12 tournament. You could argue the winner of that UCLA-Oregon game was going to go on and make a little run in the Pac-12 tournament. Well, Oregon did, and they made it all the way to the NCAA tournament. Now, a little bit different team this year. Some players moving on as we get. UCLA, though, playing Oregon will represent the first significant chance. Yes, Washington will be easy. I mean, it will be a nice look for UCLA against a team with better size, hopefully a little more depth than, say, the Cal State Fullertons, Idaho States, and the Lehighs of the world after UCLA just absolutely obliterated Southern Utah the other night. UCLA, if they don't handle up Washington, frustrating. You play Oregon, you play Arizona. These three games are a slow buildup. And Arizona keeps falling off the map with some of these mid to late November losses that are hurting, right? They hosted Duke, couldn't win. I know Arizona just lost to Oklahoma, which wasn't one of the best losses that they could have. So that game might not even be a top 25 game for UCLA. Still a tough one that they're going to host against the Wildcat. They're going to play the Wildcats in the Footprint Center, home to the Suns in Phoenix, Arizona. You get North Carolina, Gonzaga, all of which will have all taken a loss. So all these teams will have learned how to adjust, learn how to play teams away from home, or in some cases at home, lose, falter, and try to rebound. But this is the playtime's over. The training wheels are off. Cronin's not going to be playing guys 15 minutes, 10 guys deep. They're not all going to be playing 15 minutes or more, or 10 minutes or more. This is where we get to truly dissect what Cronin wants to do based on a matchup-to-matchup basis. When they're down 10, which they will be down, UCLA in these next few games is going to find themselves down 10. Maybe it's Washington comes out, hits their first 5 shots, and UCLA's ice cold, right? Still sleeping off the Thanksgiving dinner. Could happen. But UCLA should still hopefully coast to victory. Who's going to come in and get those buckets? Is it going to be a reliable Bilodeau, who had an off night against Southern Utah? Can they find a way to unleash the three-point shooting potential of Dominic Harris, whose numbers show it after his year last year at LMU? Or is it anybody else, like a Sky Clark, who you'd like to see shoot a bunch of threes? Anybody. Or does Cronin tap into guys and start shifting lineups into the big man lineup he's promised, right? Of wanting to use Bilodeau, Daly, and Kyle on the floor at the same time, which completely shrinks his guard rotation into a super battle for the 1 and 2 spots. And you're already expecting Kobe Johnson to play. Where's UCLA going to put all their guards if UCLA decides to go big? I don't know. Just means an even better competition for a singular spot, one might assume. Playtime's over. Training wheels are off. UCLA, no more 40-point wins. Maybe they can beat Washington by 20 to 25 because I'm not sure the Huskies are ready this early at the moment. Kind of just looking at what they've done, who they played. I'm not sure if Sprinkle's going to come in and just take the Huskies to the tournament in year 1. I think that's a multi-year opportunity for him to turn it around. And while the transfer portal can change things, and the growth within 1 year can change things, based on these early season results, I think UCLA is getting Washington at a good time to come out hungry for some team that's not in a mid-major conference and play them at home and just get excited for a big-time game. The first one for UCLA since they played New Mexico, and they better ace the challenge. But you get a potential top 25 Oregon, maybe top 20 if they sweep this weekend tournament by beating Alabama and SC. Maybe a fringe top 25 Arizona, but that still is a significant matchup. 1, for the basketball rivalry. 2, You beat Arizona in the state of Arizona. That just kind of shifts the perspective for UCLA moving forward into the next couple weeks, where then they go across the country to play North Carolina. They're going to come back and play Gonzaga, who outside that one blip has come back and responded really well to that one loss with a dominant victory. And the Bruins have to exercise their demons when it comes to playing Gonzaga. Even if none of these players have even stayed up to watch the highlights of the 2006 victory or know the pain that it was in 2021 when Suggs hit a miracle banked-in half-court buzzer-beating three that crushed all our hearts in the Final Four in the bubble tournament, they have to know how to exercise those demons. A UCLA team that is preparing to get over this. All right, we've played. We've been a little lackadaisical. No, they looked as sharp and as focused as they've been all season against Southern Utah. Now, can they do that against a bigger name program? Can they do that against the team that's a top 25 team? Can you do it when there's a program who knows what it's like to have hatred towards UCLA? Can the Bruins play towards that against the Wildcats in a couple weeks' time? The tests are only going to get bigger, and we're going to know really quickly if UCLA is a contender. I believe they are. I truly do. And I believed in the extreme heights of how good this team can be. In their best case scenario, third weekend of an NCAA tournament team. Now you got to build that resume, make that path even easier for yourself for a Big Ten championship, for an NCAA tournament seed line by winning these games and proving, hey, just like we've had in recent years under McCronin, we tend to lose the early game. We haven't had as easy of a schedule as UCLA's had, like with all these mid-major games at home. But once they lose that early game and Cronin gets mad at them, they tend to figure it out. And the real good teams figure it out very quickly, very quickly. Just like that Pac-12 championship winning team lost to in Vegas. One of the hottest teams in the country, got up to what? Number 2, number 3 in the country at one point. Really good. Really, really good. Now, I can't wait to talk more football. Can't wait to talk more men's basketball. Women's basketball is going to Hawaii for 3 straight. We'll talk all about it here on Locked On UCLA. Well, if you're a new customer on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, you're going to want to put down a $5 bet. Why? Because if you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. A $5 bet can get you, with a win, $150 in bonus bets as a new customer. So go to FanDuel.com, check it out. Hey, UCLA is looking like they're going to be favored for the first time on the gridiron since week 1. And you want to double dip with UCLA ending that losing streak to the Bulldogs of Fresno State? Go put that first $5 bet down on the Bruins to cover, and you can get $150 in bonus bets. Hey, try and take my word for it. If not, if you're a new customer, win that first $5 bet, you can get $150 in bonus bets by going to FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel. That's going to do it for this late night Thanksgiving feast week edition of Locked On UCLA. The training wheels are off. We're done. No more of these crazy bad games. Yes, they still got Prairie View A&M in the middle of December to prepare for the Bruins at Pauley Pavilion. But until then, every game now counts towards the standings, the seeding, towards the eye test, to the belief in this team. It's starting now, and the excitement is going to build. So get our hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.